You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by Impact Dynamics, advanced training for the precision shooter. And now, over to your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. This is episode number 9. I'm Rusty, and with me tonight is the full team. We've got Greg over here.
Hey, Rusty.
Andrew over there.
How you doing, Sam?
And next to me is Dan.
G'day, Sam. How you going?
Good. Welcome aboard, Dan. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, mate. It's good to finally be here.
It's been a long time coming, but it's great to have the full gang together. We've talked about it several times, and all four of us in the room together. This is that's pretty good. So for the listeners who haven't, we've referenced Dan a few times, but tonight he's actually here, the myth, the legend, and just here to add to the discussion. So I guess, Dan, at some point we're going to cover off a bit of your background as well, but that when we get around to it, we've got a few things on the list tonight.
Yep, no worries. I think there'll be. I'll have more questions tonight on tonight's topic than input. So,
oh, very good. So tonight's main topic is talking about bottom metal and feeding systems, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Have you guys been following SHOT Show at all?
Yeah, a little. It's obviously a little bit disconcerting that we can't have most of the things there, but there's a few things that have come up that have been of interest. Yeah, So Savage have put out a new rifle, which looks pretty interesting. They're calling it the 110 Stealth, I think, is pretty much a response to Ruger's precision rifle. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah, and any features on it that you've seen, or is it just a sort of a Savage that looks a bit more tactical? No, basically, but Savage are claiming they factory blueprint the actions, whatever that means.
Righto.
I don't really know what that means, they haven't elaborated, but no, it's modular, takes a lot of the AR type furniture, very similar concept to the Ruger, effectively. It's their version of that rifle. Modular, affordable, retailing for the same price. So
they're starting with a basic action. Is that where they're coming from, the blueprinting side of things? Is that what they're saying? They're starting with a basic action?
They haven't really elaborated. It's more like they're just trying to imply, I think, that they're building them well and accurate. Now, what they've done to them, they haven't said.
I guess time will tell, won't it?
Yeah, one would presume they just pick ones that are maybe a little bit more concertric than the others or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen a release date in the States for it at all?
No, I haven't looked that closely into it, but yeah, they certainly look good, and the media, like range days they had over there at Vegas, they were all very impressed. Well. Yeah, accuracy and sort of ergonomics. So,
yeah, brilliant. And there's a few new scopes out as well, if anyone's seen that. I know Vortex released a couple, but that AMG Razor. Yeah, that new line, they look good. They're sort of upper end, so they'll be of interest to the long range kind of guys. So, and Schmidt and Bender have got a new high power.
Yeah, I can't recall offhand the actual
it's
range.
40-something, 42 or thereabouts.
It's very high ratio, so low power right through to very high power. So, yeah, interesting for the tactical type guys. You don't know what the adjustment on that was, Andrew, at all? Because that's always a thing when you get your high powers, you're always sacrificing elevation, or usually. Yeah, I haven't seen it. There hasn't been that much released yet, as far as I'm aware, so that'll come in coming weeks, I'm guessing. Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, very good. And Greg, how's your build going, mate?
It's not. It's not at the moment. Yeah, so as I've said before, tonight's probably a big night for me in terms of making sort of one of the final decisions or major decisions in getting a bottom medal. So we'll talk about that a bit more later. But the barrel's ready to go. So really, it's just down to getting that bottom medal in. And heading off to the gunsmith, and I'm pretty close. Yeah. Pretty much there. Yeah, very good. Well, my latest plans is a Kestrel array, and Kestrel released some new stuff, which is all designed to link up and be able to give you feedback all the way down the range. And from a training point of view and a testing point of view, that's going to be very interesting to be able to get that data in real time. That's 1,000 meters away or further, and not relying on wind flags. So how does that work? Does that give you separate readings for each data point, or does it give you an average wind across the length of the array? I believe it gives you both. Both. Wow. I'm yet to see it in action. Yeah. So. Yeah. Is that by putting
more kestrels downrange? Or
Yeah, so you can nominate, 5, 6, 7 kestrels, link them all into each other. They'll feed back to a laptop, and you get all the data there in real time. So if we're spending time training or giving guys time on wind calls, we don't have to move, and we can guess what the wind is, and then see whether or not we're right.
Yeah,
I think that for training purposes would be absolutely invaluable as far as teaching
Huge
immediate feedback.
Well, it's going to make the instructors look really good, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Just better than they are. Yeah,
exactly.
Better than they already look. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that it's really only limited for the training applications. Really, I mean, if you're going, say, long range hunting, it's obviously not usable. But
no, the challenge was always we always continued that discussion on that particular location. That one of the places we shoot long range, where do we put up wind flags when we're going to get used to the wind flags and not necessarily read off the terrain, or do we sort of suck it and just read off the terrain but not always get things as accurate as we could? And I was always hoping this solution was coming, and to be able to put wind readers out there that we can't see what they're doing, so we have to make the call off the terrain and then be able to confirm it off the data. So not using the data to make the shot, using your wind calls to make the shot,
and
but
then
being able to
referencing back to it, would be really handy. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be getting close to cheating, wouldn't it, to use that data and then make the shot?
Right.
On
Well,
that.
I mean, using that data and nothing else, it's not teaching a thing. So,
No.
But for for people that really want to learn, it's going to be invaluable.
Yeah, to be able to confirm what's happening.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean.
So anyway, that's a new little project for me in the works that I'm hoping to hooked up with a couple of guys locally who will actually hopefully get in for an interview as well sometime soon. That'd be good.
And that's all. It's all wireless.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that all released or yet to be released, or
Parts of it being released. I think it's out and about, and it's just a matter of actually getting one deployed.
Yeah, okay.
So,
great.
Looks really good. So have any of you guys been shooting in the last few weeks?
No,
You've done much?
I haven't been shooting at all. I mean, I've been preparing for. It's not really a lot to do with long range shooting, but preparing for the duck opening coming up in March.
Yep,
but,
later one this year.
Yeah, I find that I tend to. My long range shooting tends to I drop off. I do a bit during the summer months, but it tends to suck a bit out there at 35 degrees with a heavy mirage, and sometimes it's not a lot of fun. So yeah, but no, we're getting as it starts to cool off, I'll start ramping it up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, nice. Greg, you've been out, haven't you?
Yeah, I went out on Friday, Saturday. Went out to Karoonda out in the South Aussie Mallee and chasing the foxes, and good couple of nights. There was a lot of movement. They were coming into calls, so no big long shots or anything, mainly sort of 250, 300. Everything was inside 300, and a couple, come right in.
Yep.
But yeah, a couple of nights, lots of action,
good stuff.
Really good stuff, and had the 243 and a 223 performing quite well. One of your ex-students came out and shot really well.
That's right, Simon,
yeah, his confidence is building, so his foundation knowledge is really good now. It's just a matter of trigger time, and you can see it all coming together, which is good to watch.
Yeah, fantastic.
So, he got a lot of enjoyment out of reaching a bit further than he normally would on this trip. So, yeah.
Yeah, good to see that confidence. That helps immensely, doesn't it?
It does. So, yeah, good trip.
I've had a couple of times out recently on the just on the 22s, actually, but really trying to push them a bit further, getting my Lithgow out there and trying to see how far it will go on steel.
Yeah, well, 22 is a good practice. There's lots of guys in the US that do 22 trainers, don't they, out of Ruger 1022s. Just
out of all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, even bolt guns.
Yeah, and just put tactical stocks on them just for cheap training. So, the principles are all still there, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good, cheap way to train. Get lots of rounds downrange. Absolutely. Now, guys, have you done any research on this bottom metal question? Because, Greg, tell us about this situation, where you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, so with this project rifle, one of sort of the final decisions I need to make is what bottom metal to put on this rifle. Now, at the moment, I've got a standard internal mag, 4-round internal mag. But I've got to look at what I intend to use this rifle for and decide, well, is internal for me, or do I want to go to a detachable box magazine? And I want to do that before I continue on and put the barrel on, just to make sure everything's sort of set up right, and I know my overall length I'm working with. But so I'm hoping tonight, we can just talk about that, what would probably suit my particular task, and we'll talk more about that, and what might suit hunting over what I'm doing and those sorts of things, just for some of the guys out there that are making the decisions. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so I have actually done a little bit of looking into it. So I think we've got quite a few topics to bring up and talk over. So
carry on, kick off.
Okay, well, I guess you're obviously using a Remington 700, so that,
yep, short action.
Yep. What I've sort of looked over is, there's a lot of options that utilise Accuracy International mags or compatible, same size, compatible with the same system magazines. There's not a lot of options that you could utilise without having the stock inletted that take the standard pattern Remington trigger guard inlet.
Okay.
Probably the main one comes to mind is HS Precision.
Yep.
They do offer that. However, they use a proprietary magazine and are prohibitively
not
expensive.
Cheap. Yeah.
Okay. Just availability of the magazines they are the only people that make them. So,
and they're pretty. Then you don't always get the amount of rounds in. They're often quite shorter mags.
No, or they do offer 10-round mags in the short action, but it's said availability of magazines. You've got one supplier to choose from.
Who just changed distributor recently as well, which I'm sure won't help things if you were going to go down that path.
No, it just, it's very, very limited, I think. So I think you've basically got to accept that you're probably going to have to get your stock inletted to suit, which is no big deal, because there's a company here in Adelaide that will inlet stock for it, CNC inlet the stock for whatever you get.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So that's going to be a big advantage for you. So
Yep.
I think it's changed a lot, because I'm just remembering when we went through my build, Andrew, there wasn't a lot of different bottom metals to choose from. There was Badger. There might have been maybe one other brand to choose from. There wasn't a lot. Nowadays, there's a whole array of choices. Like there's even companies here in Adelaide that are making their own product, and so it's sky's the limit. And the badges were always very expensive, very pricey, and nowadays you can pick up good bottom metals for a third of the price.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean there's basically, I think you got a lot of issues to look at, but I think if you accept that you have to use something that's going to be compatible with AI magazines, that is the sort of the standard, really.
Yep. Just stepping back one step before, because I'd like to flesh out a little bit whether or not to go magazine or whether to go floor plate.
Yep.
Because depending on the situation, I think it's an important question, and it. I certainly used to think everything should be magazine driven. I've certainly changed over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, changed that thought pattern.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, even myself, with my hunting rifles, because I don't really cull anymore, years ago we used to go up and deck a whole heap of goats. It was all about culling, so you needed the rounds. But these days, you're really only taking meat, or culling's not happening. So I actually do prefer internal mags for hunting. I think the task, obviously there's a lot of personal preference over the top of that. But
of course.
I don't think I'd go mag on a hunting rifle. But
yeah, see, my spotlighting 22 to 50, I've left internal because I prefer it be able to. You're not usually putting through 5-6 shots in one go. You're putting through a couple on a fox or a cat or something, and then just topping up 1 or 2 here and there. And I find in that situation it's great. But my pig shooting gun, I've found magazines a far better way, and preferably something that takes 10 rounds.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time, like I've found, if you're spotlighting in particular out the window of a car, like if you're either driving or from the passenger seat,
they get in the way.
A 10-round mag, really, it's in the wrong spot. It's right on the door. hooks on everything when you're trying to get in and out of the vehicle, so that's a pain. But yeah, I mean, and the advantage, most detachable magazines can't be top loaded.
Some Seikos can and a few others.
But the majority can't,
Most.
which then sort of means you've got to pull the mag out to top it up rather than just dropping them in through the ejection port, which is another advantage of internal mag. But again, probably the bigger disadvantage is lack of capacity. And if you want to unload the magazine, you either got to drop the whole floor plate out and have them sort of spill out, or you cycle them through the gun. So detachable magazine, you just drop the mag out and you're done. So the pros and cons of both. But for a dedicated rifle like what Greg's looking at, I think it's...
I do agree, magazine.
Yeah.
So you're thinking more towards internal mag? But this gun isn't a hunting gun.
No, that's right. It's this is a comp gun. So basically, I'm trying to set it up for the Southern Shooters tactical shooting competition that we're going to hold each year.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to look at. A detachable mag would suit more practical matches than
absolutely,
than an internal for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, and if you were to sort of go into using this gun for hunting and that sort of thing, which I'm sure it will get used, you can get the shorter magazines. You can get 5-round detachable mags. They're really they're not necessarily flush, but they don't protrude as far.
But then I'm a big fan on my guns of double stack magazines. So you can get a 7 to 10 round magazine that is sitting about as long as a 5-shotter.
Okay.
There's another issue with that though. I mean, the only issue with that really is that with a Remington Action, if you want to go with a double stack mag like the Accuracy International AW or equivalents, there needs to be some milling work done to the bottom of the receiver. They're set up for center feed. Now you need to machine some material out of the action to do that. Some actions, custom actions like the Stiller, some of the Stiller actions that are set up specifically, they are already set up to take double stack. They can also feed off a center feed magazine like the Accuracy International AICS style of mag, but that's a point which I was going to bring up with Greg a little later about whether if you want to try and keep it as standard without going to all this custom machining on the action, it does then further narrow down a little bit your magazine choices.
Yeah. Did we get any machining done to mine running the Alpha Industries mag? That's double stack. I'm pretty sure that
double stack center feed.
Center feed, correct.
Yeah. So they are shorter.
Yeah.
There are the AW magazine is shorter again. Because the center feed Alpha Industries magazine still the rounds have to come up into the center, so you lose or you gain an extra 10 mil or so in magazine length. So I think I'm squeezing 8 rounds into that mag. Yeah, and it's very short. It is very short. You wouldn't pick the difference between a 5-round mag and that one there, and without not having to work the action any further. And they feed quite very light. I've never had any issues with feeding from that magazine.
And that's probably my biggest requirements: reliability of feed. I don't care if it's ugly. I don't care if it's not quite the right colour or whatever. As long as it does its job, flawlessly is what I'm after. Reliability.
So, I guess for the purpose of Greg's rifle, I think it's quite clear the detachable system is preferable to an internal fixed magazine. And I think looking at the options, something that's going to take Accuracy International compatible magazines is going to be the go because of availability. I mean, I looked and there's multiple manufacturers of magazines that are compatible with that system. So you're really not limited, and the prices comes way down. Like Magpul, for example, they do a polymer magazine that in the US is retailing for under $40.
Really?
So it would be more here, obviously, but they're renowned for their reliability, and that's one of about half a dozen I just found very quickly.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, look, and I sort of expected the conversation to sort of head in this direction because it makes sense with the task that I'm going to do. And I think, sort of a typical stage, looking at sort of between 8 and sort of 10 rounds is sort of the average, maybe a couple of rounds on top of that here and there. So, that's certainly you couldn't do that with an internal mag. It would just not work.
Not knowing what's coming up in the future too. There could be reloading stages. There could be all that sort of stuff, and
true.
Having spare mags is always helpful in those situations. So.
Absolutely, and I think the other thing is, even if you do take this gun hunting, you're probably not going to be hunting straight from a vehicle. You may be prone on a hill, or you may be doing something along those lines, and therefore that magazine's not going to cause you any hindrance in that environment either.
Good point, Sam. Good point.
Yeah, very good. Andrew, in your research, did you find there's other options to the AI mags, like rather than going down the AI compatible path?
I mean, there is. I said like the HS option is one, but it seems now, I mean, short of going to really kind of specialised systems that would definitely require substantial alteration to the action, presuming Greg needs to go with basically not touching the action. Using the AI compatible magazines is the way to go. Now, having said that, there's a huge number of manufacturers now that make appropriate units that'll take those magazines.
Yep.
So what I guess we really need to talk about is what's going to be available and a costs issue.
Sure.
There's a couple options which are manufactured here in Australia, which are as good as anything made in the US or Europe, and price is going to be less and availability is going to be more. So there's Atlas Works, which they're made here in Australia, and they're
local, right.
Yeah, they take the AI mags, and then you've got Lumley Arms as well, which are again they're in Sydney. So,
and I think that Bolly Aviation are making their own.
I don't think they're making them. Well, they may be, but I know they're carrying the Atlas.
Atlas is it?
Yeah, they're carrying the Atlas stuff, and Bolly they're the company I was referring to when I said they do the inletting of the stock. So
correct,
they're out. Edinburgh way, Elizabeth way, somewhere out north. Yep. So they will inlet any stock for any bottom metal. Whether you were to go with Atlas, I mean they supply Atlas, so obviously they've got everything ready to go. They could probably supply you the unit as well, but they also will inlet for anything. So
sounds good.
I've seen both those units, the Atlas as well as the Lumley Arms, and they're first rate. They're very good quality.
Yeah,
the Atlas is cheaper. It is a cheaper unit, but it's also alloy. So Lumley Arms do stainless and a 4140 steel, so they're heavier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Depends what you want, really. I mean, they're a lot more robust, I guess. But
but both work equally as reliable.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And they again take the magazines that are available from.
So sometimes that reliable feed is just a slight bend of the feed lips as well, and then you won't ever have those issues if you've got someone that knows what they're doing with that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Sometimes some things that have been passed off as unreliable, they really aren't. It's just there might have been an error or flaw with the magazine itself, not the actual bottom metal.
Well, that's from my experience. It's almost always the magazine itself. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at a pressed and folded sheet metal part or an injection molded plastic part, and the actual trigger guard itself, the detachable mag system is most of the time CNC machined out of either steel or alloy. It's usually going to be quite okay. It's normally mags, but again, there's such a variety of mags now, and it's become the sort of standard, I guess, that almost all the major manufacturers have got it right now. And people like Magpul and MDT are producing polymer mags that are, they may not last as long as a steel mag, but they're certainly very slick and very smooth. They feed well. Yeah. If you drop them on the ground, they're not going to bend the feed lips and that sort of thing.
And they're obviously see-through, so you can see them around.
No, they're not. The ones I've seen are black, but I mean, I guess you're only talking 10 rounds capacity, so you've got 10 fingers, Greg. So
I'm working on it.
Oh, good. And if we were to, because we do have plenty of US listeners, what's available in the US, Andrew? Have you looked at that?
Lots, basically. I mean, we just got up on the screen here Badger, and Badger are basically the benchmark. They're probably, as far as I'm aware, the original manufacturer of this type of system. They're extremely well made. Again, if they were available here in Australia, that would be sort of definitely a contender as well.
Well, they are.
They are, yeah.
We've brought up Huntsman Firearms there, and
Yep.
they list them as available.
Yeah, I mean, the availability here is always, it's not as available as a locally made product. But again, I guess the cost is a big issue as well. You're looking at substantially...
Yeah, quite a bit more, aren't you?
Now, I mean, I guess for somebody in the US that's got access to everything, I mean, they've got...
Badger's price includes the magazine, doesn't it? Does that include a magazine?
I'm not sure offhand. I don't know. Actually, it was years ago since I last ordered them.
Yeah.
I mean, in the US, they've got a vast number of options, really. I mean...
It is included, just reading through the description.
Just a 5-round mag,
5-round mag's included.
So that's...
Makes it more...
What's that? What's a 5-round AI mag worth?
$100.
Yeah, 100.
So you'd have to take that off compatible, price, and you have to take the magazine off to be, comparing apples with apples. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a Badger system compared with, say, a CDI, which again, as far as I'm aware, US made, and even the Atlas Works unit, they're very, very similar. I mean, there's only so many ways you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And Badger are certainly. You couldn't get something better than them. There are certainly others that are on par with, so I guess it just comes down to availability. But in the US, there's a lot of manufacturers like Seekins Precision, for example. They manufacture their own trigger guards that are just really nice. Stiller Precision, they do their own.
Yeah.
Pacific Tool and Gauge, they make their own, as well as numerous other ones. CDI, they do a lot of different ones, and obviously Badger expand their product line.
Yeah.
I guess, for US customers, their options, they're a lot more spoiled for choice than we are here.
Yeah.
Just looking rough sort of pricing, that Lumley Arms system is about half the price of the Badger, a little bit under actually. Doesn't include a magazine, but when it's half the price, being about a $300 saving, you can buy a couple magazines for that same sort of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's always good to support local. We find it's always a good option. So that's always something to consider.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't know if you looked into it, Andrew, is magazine release, because I know traditionally you have this fairly long lever. I've seen recently, just the other day, where there was one actually built as part of the trigger guard.
Yeah, there's a few options like that. I believe Atlas Works have just actually released their version of that. I know a few of the US manufacturers have done it, so you don't have a large protrusion to sort of knock inadvertently and release your magazine. The Atlas Works one, I think, is fairly recent. It's about $20 dearer than the standard one, but in Australian dollars, you're still talking, I think it's $185 for the unit, which is pretty good. We've just got up on screen now some of the Atlas Works units. That one there we're looking at is effectively a very similar design to a Badger, where the mag release lever protrudes maybe 3/4 of an inch below the front of the trigger guard. That's probably the most popular, and if you keep in mind the magazine actually keeps that fairly well protected,
hidden if you're using a 10.
Yeah.
But if you're using a 5, it does protrude.
Correct, but I think if you have a look, Badger definitely do. Not Badger. Atlas Works definitely do a new one with a different release on it. It's a newer product, but again, it's catering for what people want to use. And I think we just got up on screen now. It's
that's
like
the one there. You've got sort of two levers, or not? It's a one part, but it appears on both sides of the trigger guard, and you can reach forward with your trigger finger and push it.
Yeah,
so you drop the magazine out.
And again, I think that sort of style is coming out of the US, where I know a number of manufacturers there are doing similar, and it's being, people use both, successful shooters using both, so it's a personal choice really. The unit we've got up on the screen now, Greg, I think if I was in your situation, I'd be looking very closely at that.
It does look very good. I'm just looking at that one, and I think, like for my application, it's a good choice. But do you think hunting, someone like wearing gloves, would be able to operate that one?
That's a fair point. Yeah.
It's very tight to the trigger guard. I think, like, if you're in a cold climate type scenario, that one mightn't be the best choice for, say, the hunters out there.
Hadn't considered that. It would be a very, very valid concern. I think, if you had thicker gloves on, that probably the longer lever would be
very easy to use.
Easier to use. And I guess it's probably one of those things of once you're familiar with the system you've got, you're not going to have issues with accidentally knocking it.
For sure.
Sort of carry your rifle in a way that that stops that from being an issue. So either. I mean, the actual unit themselves, the quality of them and the way they operate will be the same. So
So, Greg, are you considering getting action work done to be able to run double stack magazines, or are you just happy to run single stack AI mags?
I'm happy to run single stack.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not overly, concerned about mag length if I go with the mags.
Yep.
Interesting point, Greg, is even if you did down the tractor side you wanted to, basically, as far as I'm aware, all these trigger guards will be compatible with, say, an Accuracy International AW magazine. So it's really then going to be more to the point of you just need to get the work done to the receiver, the underside of the action. Now, there may not be all units that would be like that, but it's not a big deal later on if you did decide to want to do it.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, very good. So have you made any decisions tonight, Greg? Has that helped at all?
Yeah. Look, there's 2 or 3 that stand out there. For me, obviously, I don't want to spend a massive fortune. I don't want a gold-plated solution. I want a practical, affordable solution.
Is that because you're still saving up for that Defiance action?
Yeah, the Defiance action.
Yeah, it's coming.
Still dreaming about that Defiance
Absolutely.
action. One day. I just want something practical that's going to meet the requirement. Relatively affordable, and there's a couple of options that have been put up in front there. So I think I'll sort of head towards those. I'll have a closer look and research them a bit more myself between the longer mag release and the one in against the trigger. That's really the decision that I'm thinking about that I just need to
make.
Put a bit more thought into.
I would suggest, it's shameless plug, I guess, but Bolly Aviation, they do, Bolly Composite Stocks do handle a lot of this sort of thing, and you probably even maybe go and have a look, see if they've got both units in stock.
Yeah, that'd be the best thing.
Have a look, because it's a bit hard to ascertain. And then they're really knowledgeable, and if you utilise them for your inletting, it's right there. So,
and I've heard they got a new 5-axis coming.
Yeah, I did see that on their website. I mean, they're pretty serious about their gear.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, they've got a new what coming?
5-axis CNC.
Oh, okay, righto. So that ups the ante in what they can produce, obviously.
They can make anything, basically.
Yeah.
Very good. Funny enough, it's those same guys who are doing the Kestrel work for me. So I think we definitely need to get someone from Bolly in to have a chat about their stocks, or everything they're doing, plus their new
I think that could well be a 2-interview... a 2-session interview there.
Sounds very good. Brilliant. Guys, I'm curious with the other guys here. What are you guys running in terms of bottom metal?
Mine is a Badger, only because that was all that was really available at the time when we built my rifle, and it wasn't until later on down the track that I found out about the what's that double stack single feed?
Oh, the Alpha Industries magazine.
Yeah, the Alpha Industries magazine, and that solved all my issues there in one magazine. So, and it feeds really reliable. Never had any issues with it.
So the double stack's obviously shorter and therefore not.
Correct. So I'm able to get I think 7 or 8 rounds into the magazine. It's still as short as a 5-round.
Yep.
A 5-round magazine, and it doesn't give you those issues at spotlighting at night, and because I use that rifle for pretty much everything in between shooting long range steel to long range game to spotlighting at night and everything. So,
right. Yeah. Oh, very good.
Yeah, I mean I've gone a similar line with using AI compatible systems for most of my stuff. I did one of my rifles is set up as with a BDL style hinge floor plate. And that rifle was one that I found was a walk-around hunting rifle, and I got sick of having long magazines. I was using the AICS, which is a 10-round single feed, like straight feed, not staggered feed magazine. So it was quite long, and I found it was getting in the way, and a lot of shooting out the door of a car. it was really just anything protruding at all was getting in the way for me. It was just right in the wrong spot, basically.
Yep.
So I ended up going with that system. I mean, you can get 4 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. It was enough. There'd be the odd occasion where I needed more, but that suited that particular rifle. But for all the long range stuff, I've gone with the detachable system, predominantly utilising Accuracy International mags, both long and short action. So.
Yeah, I think I've got probably mostly Badger. I've got a J. Allen stock as well, which has sort of its own setup. And I find that with a number of the chassis, they are sort of just machined to be able to take an AI mag without using any additional bottom metal.
Yeah, the AI magazine as a standard has become, whether it be a detachable magazine system or whether it be machined integral with the chassis or whatever it is, has become the sort of the norm. So. Yeah,
it'd be different to stray from that, because then you'd obviously supply of your magazines are going to be harder and harder to get.
Yeah.
The interesting to see, I don't know if you've seen on that Ruger Precision rifle, but it's meant to take a multitude of magazines.
Yeah, it does. It does. It takes the AWs, it takes the AIs. It's they've really stepped a notch. SR25 magazines. They've really stepped up there as far as like just doing a little bit of extra thinking in the build process. They've allowed an array of magazines. You might already have some at home, and that's a factor for you.
Yeah, because their lever that looks like a standard sort of AI type style setup with a big long lever then actually actuates another locking point on the side of the magazine as well. Yeah, which is quite an interesting system to see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to have a look at one in the flesh, but certainly the concept is good. I mean, I think the issue of anybody trying to introduce a completely different standard of magazine would be just the fact that nobody else makes them. That's right. The issue that we see with HS Precision have. Their magazines are good, but they're the only manufacturer. So, but yeah, anybody that can expand the types of magazines that they can use in their rifle, I think they're on a winner. So.
Smart move. Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone know if the Savage does that as well?
Don't know. I did
not a
read
lot of info out on that.
I keep track generally most days on the Accurate Shooter, like the Daily Bulletin, and they had a very brief spiel about it, but that was about all at this stage.
I guess it's got to hit the market, doesn't get into shooters' hands, and then really be used. And
you see the reviews hit. The YouTube reviews come out and
actually think of it.
Yeah, even a lot of these new products that are released at SHOT Show, it's a while before their websites are even updated. They don't necessarily update the website prior to the show.
They're probably all at the show. Yeah.
Well, that's right. But I mean, it's the products are released and launched, and then then you get the details a bit later. So,
absolutely. It's interesting to see the Lithgos locally going to be taking ticker mags or same inlet for that. It'll be interesting to see whether or not how much of a standard that becomes over here.
Well, they did the same thing with the
rimfire.
With the rimfire, with the taking the CZ mags, didn't they?
Yeah, it's not a smart move.
Yep.
It'd be interesting because I think that like the Tikka system is utilising basically the one magazine length overall with different blocks to suit the appropriate cartridge. So pretty easily adaptable system.
It's good if you want to seat a 308 out, but if you want to seat a 300 Win mag out, you get very limited very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find that with a lot of the systems, though. I mean, if you're trying to seat a long cartridge out with a long projectile for long-range shooting, a lot of the time you're limited. Now, I was going to touch on it before, but these sort of an addition, I guess, to the Accuracy International system is their CIP mags. They're a slightly longer version of it, effectively, which does give you a bit of extra seating depth, but it also would require, I believe, some work to the action to get that to feed. So
So and the Tikka CTR, is that AI or is that TRG magazine?
It's TRG magazine.
Yeah, they're going to do Seiko magazines. Yeah. So again, I have heard of guys altering the magazines to make an Accuracy International mag fit, but it's certainly not off the shelf.
Yeah, they'd be just dropping another bottom metal in, wouldn't they? Or are they actually changing the inlet?
No, I have seen altered Accuracy International magazines so they will fit into a TRG or to the CTR rifle. Yeah. Right. So, but again, it's certainly far from a standard item you're going to buy off the shelf.
Just going back a bit as to what you said, Rusty. as far as it's good for 308, being able to seat projectiles out further in those magazines. Is that because you can utilise a long action magazine?
That's right. Yeah,
with a short action cartridge because they're using the same.
The only thing that stops it on the Tikka is the bolt stop. So if you swap out for a long action bolt stop, you then now have the seating depth of a 300 Win mag for a 308.
You get the extra travel on your bolt and the extra mag length.
That's right. And given if you use if you actually take up that extra length and use an appropriate projectile, I've found it's got to be sort of a fairly long, slender projectile, which is what I would assume you were using if you're trying to do that. It does feed fairly well in my experience. You need to be swift with your movements. You can't sort of do a really slow feed, but it does work. It does work well.
Okay, that's something to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess with the Tikka systems, they are a good system, but again, given that they're limited to one manufacturer, I mean, you do see a few aftermarket magazine manufacturers, but Tikka as a rifle producer are the only people using them. So
that's right. Like Lucky 13, I think, have released some Tikka magazines, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they've done several revisions of it, and they're probably quite good. But I mean, they're as far as aftermarket magazine producers is very limited. I mean, if you're a Tikka owner, they're good rifle, but a little limited. But sort of diverging away from Greg's requirement here and of a Remington-based platform, it's unfortunately not applicable.
Yeah, well, look, open up the discussion because I think Greg's found his solution. If you were running a Tikka or a Hauer or something else, is the same. Do we end up at the same point? Do we end up running AI magazines still?
Yeah, I think.
If you can,
yeah, that's right.
If you can,
everything's is revolving around that AI magazine, isn't it? And as far as even locally made products now, bottom metals to suit, like Andrew said earlier, there's really good stuff being made here, as good as anything else out there, and a lot cheaper too. So
yeah, and they cater for Tikkas as well.
Yeah, that's right. And you see Howard and they all have some option to go to, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a look earlier today on CDI's website.
Yep.
Now they're either US or Canadian based, and they produce bottom metal. They're even doing Accuracy International compatible, units that take those magazines for Mauser 98 actions. They've really expanded their product line. So
wow.
It becomes, you look at, if you had a Mauser 98 action rifle, you were really limited on what you could do with it. But now your options are expanding. So, and they're all utilising the AI magazines or AI type magazines. So I think you look at the way that's going, you'd be definitely the best option.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious to hear if any of our listeners have strayed from what seems to be the norm, if they're using anything else on a regular basis, how that works for them, how their availability is, and whether or not they can get plenty of magazines very easily. Because I know supply, particularly here in Australia, supply is always the challenge.
Well, that's the thing. I have one Alpha Industries magazine, and I don't know who sells them, or I don't even know where to start looking for them. So.
Yeah, they are available here. There is a distributor here, but again, it's whether they can get them regularly, and that's a it's just a supply issue. But what is interesting, though, we haven't touched on yet, Rusty, is shorter, smaller cartridges, because I know, particularly in the US, the availability of AR-15/M4 mags is infinite. Again, probably not quite so critical or not so applicable for the precision long range type stuff. But yeah, I know there's various people that have attempted to and actually produced detachable magazine systems for bolt action rifles that take these magazines.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point as well.
Again, you're limited to the cartridge you're going to fit in one. But again, depending on the application, for a shorter range culling type rifle, the ability where legal to use a 30-round magazine, be fairly
advantageous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're somewhere where you're limited to 10-round magazines, those magazines are quite readily available and relatively cheap as well.
That's a big point in the price.
So if you're running a 223 or something along that platform,
Surrounder Blackout or any of the smaller cartridges,
probably not a bad option, or even a 204 Ruger or something along those lines. it's probably not a bad option. I mean, that as far as I'm aware, in terms of the 2-3 side of things, that's the standard, isn't it? Is that M4 type style magazine?
Well, I mean,
I know AI do one as well.
Yeah, but if you're looking at capacity wise, then the AR type magazine is certainly. I mean, having a 30-round magazine sticking out of a rifle is going to create issues as far as handling it in and out of a vehicle and ergonomics when you're shooting prone and that sort of thing. But if you were culling, if you were culling from a fixed position, or even where it wasn't such a critical issue, having that mag out the bottom of a rifle would be very advantage.
Be the choice.
Well, it's funny you say, because that we're obviously talking about you utilising those mags in a 76-15. Those P mags cycle they're very, very smooth. Like they actually, it feels like your gun just got slicker just by using one of those mags.
It's Magpul P mag. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, they just come off that slide so easy, and it feels like your gun's just it's gotten a lot slicker. It's a lot smoother, and then you go back to a normal AR mag, and you feel it stiffen up again. So it's amazing to run the two side by side and feel it's actually a difference.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I guess even back to the Accuracy International type mags. Now there's several manufacturers that do the polymer mags. So for a bolt gun, it's those are available as well. And I'm sure those sort of self-lubricating properties of the polymer would be an advantage for a bolt gun as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, gentlemen, any final thoughts on the bottom metal, the magazine sort of feeding systems, or internal floor plates at all?
Well, other than I think for Greg's application, I think we've probably narrowed it down to a detachable system to probably one of maybe two manufacturers.
Really,
hopefully,
sort of Lumley or Atlas Works, isn't it? Greg, is that?
Yeah, that's the way I'm heading, and
keeping it local.
Yeah, definitely like to keep it in Australia if I can. Cheers for the advice, guys. Sort of pointed me in the right direction.
Out of interest, are you thinking one or the other in terms of steel or alloy, or not really that fast?
I'm a bit of a steel man, to be honest.
You've stolen a few things from me, I think. No?
Badum-tsh. Yeah, well done, mate. That was good.
I mean, if that's the case, then you kind of narrow down to Lumley. And they do a stainless steel and a 4140 unit that are, as far as I'm aware, they're the same price. And
yep.
You could smash that rifle to pieces and the trigger guard would still be intact.
I'm sort of, with my shooting, I always sort of like robust rifles. Can take a knock, can take a hit, can take a bit of a kick and a tumble, and you can still pick it up and shoot it.
I heard the Defiance action is pretty tough.
Yes, Defiance. Yeah. One day, mate, one day. Yeah.
Well,
when you order yours, can you throw an extra one in?
Sure.
He's got 5 on order now, Greg.
That's right. You're down to 4 now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the Lumley arms, I've dealt with Lumley a little bit and used several of their products, and they are first quality product, and they're available, and they're really
and
good to deal with
as well.
Yeah, they're only a phone call away, and they're in Sydney, I believe. So
good. No worries. I'll look into those.
It's interesting. Greg says he wants to run with steel. Is Badger's alley, isn't it?
Badger is, yeah.
Okay, and that's touted as being one of the most robust bottom metals out there.
I mean, you look at what it does. The majority of the system is sort of contained within the rifle, within the stock. It's really only the bow of the trigger guard that is exposed. And I mean, the Badger and even the Lumley trigger guard is thick enough that it would take a huge knock, like a very, not just a drop. It would take you throwing it off a cliff to damage that. Yeah. But having said that, if the man wants steel, he wants steel. So
has he thought about is it because I'd think there'd be a considerable amount of weight saving.
That would be the only issue really. In that if it was going to be a weight issue, you go with the alloy, and if it's not, then I mean you could look that up and just ask them and find out what the weight difference is. But
yeah, I'll definitely have a look.
It would only be 100 grams or 200 grams at most. I would have thought.
I'll check it out anyway. Yeah.
Very good. Well, guys, I think that's been a good chat. And Greg sorted out what he wants, and hopefully those who have listened along with us may have learnt something as well, or at least have some information to move forward. Guys, thanks for coming in tonight, and we look forward to another one in a couple of weeks. I'm actually interviewing Nick from Ignition Custom. That'll be up next week, I think. So that'll keep us tied over until we all catch up again.
Yeah. No worries.
Very good.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast. To continue the discussion, check out our Facebook page. And for more information, head to our website, www.precisionshootingpodcast.com.au. This episode was brought to you by Impact Dynamics, advanced training for the precision shooter.